Welcome back to LA Currents. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. She's the founder of the Dr. Bryant Foundation and the Dr. Bryant Institute. It is so wonderful to have you here. You know, we were talking before we actually started the cameras rolling about the idea that there's so much going on in the mental health world in regards to this pandemic. How are we doing? How is it looking from your vantage point?
Well, so how are we doing as far as our community being affected psychologically from this pandemic? I know that as a whole, it's definitely putting a strain on individuals mentally.
Right.
Anyone who was already anxiety prone, depression prone, they are experiencing that at a much higher rate. The concern and issue is that the individuals who were used to getting, treatment from a therapist or going to a life coach, they're having to, transition into doing that via Skype, possibly telephonically, and or FaceTime. Now, I know that I have always had clients that came on and we provided coaching via telephonic, Skype, and FaceTime. And so for me, it was just about transitioning my in-office clients to that FaceTime, Skype dynamic, and it has worked amazing for them. I have also offered free COVID-19 group life coaching sessions every Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we do it via Zoom, and it's free, it's real easy. They RSVP via Zoom, and they're able to log on, and we go on for about an hour and a half, and we have people who are from New Zealand, from Brazil, Europe. These people are nationwide. And global, not nationwide, they're global. And what makes that amazing is everyone's coming in and we're connecting on the piece of you're not alone. Mm-hmm. That you too are experiencing either guilt because you're not able to work and you're used to being productive, or anxiety, or you have a lot of women who are out there on the call saying, hey, I'm a single woman and I'm quarantining by myself. And it wasn't until this pandemic that I really realized what loneliness felt like, because my family's not present. Obviously, I'm here by myself. I don't have any kiddos, and I don't have a husband or a partner, and that's really weighing in on me. And so, and the thing is, on the Black and Brown community, it's really taken a toll because there are already a lot of underlying health issues and underlying mental health issues that have to do with trauma that was already there pre-pandemic. And then if you already think of the daily lives that that minorities have been experiencing, predominantly Black and Brown communities, before the pandemic, from a mental health perspective, that was already very traumatic. That was already something that they were not getting treatment for because of their lack of access to medical care, health care, which stems from our systemic, health care disparities that continues to stay on the back burner of the American health system. Mm-hmm. And because of those things, now that we enter a pandemic, you take the weight and the trauma that was already there prior to this and multiply that by 100 or sometimes 200 times, depending on the individual, the family, the community, and the neighborhood. And so there was a funny meme I seen on social media going around that says, hey, everybody, something of the sort of, hey, everybody who's not Black, you guys have only been experiencing this crisis for a week. I think it was a week at that time. And you're already complaining. Imagine being Black and experiencing this for your entire life. And when I read that, I was like, oh my God, that is so real. And that is so true. Will everyone understand that perspective? Of course not. But minorities who have been undergoing discrimination, that have been undergoing systemic racism from the employment, criminal justice, from the healthcare sectors, this is something that they go through every day. And so a pandemic is just an additional crisis to add on to their already traumatic plate or lifestyle. And so they have been taught, to survive in their community. And so what do? They go into survival mode even more now. And that's very sad, because what that does is it then attacks the nervous system. And so you're talking about underlying health issues. What happens to someone who's already diabetic, already has high blood pressure, already is experiencing asthma or obesity, right. And now they are having to undergo mental health concerns because of this additional crisis that's happening in their world. That doesn't help them health-wise, no. Right? It puts a bigger strain on them.
You're
So,
right.
yeah.
There's such nuance with all of this, and it's changing on a minute by minute basis. We say that every single day, but you have an arena of expertise to be able to recognize indicators that may not be obvious. So, in the minority community, you mentioned there are issues that are not necessarily people aren't necessarily aware of. But on a personal note, what are some of the indicators of somebody who might be experiencing something different, unusual, or over the top with this pandemic, in these communities that are already suffering in their own right?
Absolutely. Great question as well. So it's funny you say, what are these indicators? What are these triggers? What are these symptoms, right, somewhat look like? And the unfortunate part is that they look very similar to what it looked like prior to the pandemic.
Okay.
And that is our main concern for the Black and brown community. This crisis is a crisis that we have been feeling and we have been experiencing when there was no COVID-19 pandemic crisis. So for a lot of us waking up and trying to figure out how are we going to go into this world and fight back the discrimination? How do we go to this job interview and already have an inferiority complex? How do we walk into the grocery store and, perfect example, I was in Target a couple weeks ago and a Black man walked in and he had a full ski mask on. Security guard, which was warranted, stopped him at the front and said, "Excuse me, sir," checked him and pretty much, ran him his rights, wanted to make sure everything was okay, which, don't get me wrong, makes sense, kind of. Because there has been a pandemic going on where we have been advised by our local officials to wear masks to protect ourselves. Well, this Black man might have had only that ski mask to cover up. He may not had access to the regular mask that just goes over your ear, right? Or a medical mask. And that is one of my concerns, because that in itself is discrimination. Because this man was told to wear a mask to protect himself and to protect his family and protect everyone else who's around him, and he comes in with a mask. And for me, looking at him, I didn't see a threat, because in my mind I'm going, yes, Black man wearing a mask, he's doing his thing, he's following the rules, go guy, go, yes, high five. But he gets stopped for doing what he was instructed to do and just trying to go grocery shop and bring food possibly home to himself and his family. Those are things that not all optics will understand, that not all lives and perspectives will get, because not everyone lives that every day. But when you live that, or you see it being done from the optics of myself being a Black and brown, a Black and Mexican woman, full minority, and don't bring in being a woman, I'm a triple minority, that stuff is very heartbreaking. And in that moment, I thought, wow. And so I walked up to him after. I said, I want to give you kudos for wearing your mask and for doing what's right. And I hope that you didn't feel offended by that. And if you did, I want to apologize on behalf of that security, because I don't believe that the security had an ill intent, because this is a security guard I speak to every day when I come to Target. But I know what comes with the stereotype of being Black or brown and having a look. So that puts on extra stress during a pandemic. What if I leave my house and use the mask that I only have access to?
Right. You actually almost answered what I was going to ask you, because as a mental health professional, what would you have told that man after he got home, or how would you have offered how he would handle it emotionally, internally? Because he must have come out of that store with a lot of turmoil. I was doing the right thing, and yet I was given
and I'm still hit on the hand. I'm
exactly.
still dinged.
So you helped, obviously, by telling him that he did the right thing. But then when he got home, what would you advise him to? How would he manage it? Where would he put that experience?
Great question. Managing skills, coping skills. What does that look like? Definitely I would definitely advise that he would debrief and he would share that story with someone at home who can relate to that.
Okay.
I would think that he has a Black household. Most of us who are minorities have minority households. Share that story from a place of peace and from a place of vulnerability, not from a place of anger. I would not advise that he does not share it, because what happens is it then can become something he internalizes. And what that does is it creates an internal struggle. And so that's when internal struggles and internalizing things come up as anger, because anger is just underlying pain. And then when he goes out in the world and someone pokes at him one more time, like that security guard did, and maybe their intent isn't bad, then he blows over. And now he looks like a stereotypical angry black man when he's not. He has underlying issues that he is trying to process, and he has nowhere to process them. And, you know, so it's important for, I would say, for him to go home and have that conversation and say, this is what happened at the store. This is how I felt. And I'm tired of feeling that every day. And then the most empowering thing someone can do when they are fed up and tired of being treated or seeing something, or they have an issue or concern with a community, problem, whatever that may be, is to get yourself involved with a nonprofit. Get yourself involved with the community organization that is tackling the issue that you have at hand. Because not only do you learn more about that issue, and through understanding comes compassion, not just for others, but for ourselves. But you're also able to be a solution to the problem that you are having yourself. So you get to insert yourself, and it's so therapeutic, because you get to be around people that say, yeah, I experienced the same thing, but here goes a resolution. Now let's go do something about it. And that's how you help yourself, you help your household. And I always say, you start with self-household, and once you help your household, it's contagious. The neighbors start to catch on. And now you have something that has changed, not a household, not a block, but an entire community. And that whole community becomes something that a city can take a whole culture of. And now a whole race is impacted.
As soon as you said the word household, my brain immediately went to the word child. And, although this pandemic is affecting adults in terms of their physical health, children are affected as well. So what should parents be looking for, in particular in minority homes, to see what's going on with their children? Because this is pretty terrifying for a lot of little guys.
Yeah, it really is. The most important thing that a parent can do, or parents can do, or guardians of kids, is to make sure that their anxiety level is managed, to make sure that they are in one piece, to make sure that mentally they are stable, to make sure that they are practicing faith over fear, and that they are practicing peace over panic, because little kiddos mimic what we do, and they learn the culture of how to deal with crisis through how we deal with crisis. And so this is something that is a huge learning opportunity for kiddos to not only learn how to deal with this pandemic, but as I say all the time, even when this pandemic is gone, we all are going to experience some crisis in our life on a personal level, whatever that may be. And if they can lead by great example of, staying calm, of keeping an optimistic mindset. And I always say narrative is important. What narrative are you telling yourself as a parent? Because that narrative that you tell yourself, that is your reality. Whether it's through this pandemic, pre-pandemic, or post-pandemic, whatever we tell ourselves is what we create in our mind. And in our mind creates our optics. And what we see, we believe, and that becomes our environment. And so if we can create a narrative that's really fun and really fluffy for ourselves, then our kids will also experience that reality. And I love that you brought up kids, because I always say that, when kids are young, or both of us were young at some point. We're still young. We're still young. We're still young, right?
So long ago.
The thing that's so amazing about kiddos is they are experts at dealing with crisis when they're kids, because they're innocent. And so when there's trauma that's too much for them in a household or in their little world, they create this really, really magical animated story, this narrative in their mind that they live in order for them to survive whatever little crisis they're going through as kiddos. What happens is, as we become adults, we forget to continue to be that imaginative and to create our narrative as to what type of reality and what type of world we want to experience. And you have to, as kids, they do it naturally. As adults, we have to work backwards. Okay, there's a pandemic going on. What kind of environment do I want for myself and for my kids? Let me create that narrative. Let me listen to the news for information purposes, but not keep it on as a hobby and something I'm listening to over and over again. Let me make sure that we're listening to positive audiobooks, or we're watching positive films together as a family. Let's implement board games. Let's make sure we keep a schedule with our kids. If they used to get up at 7 a.m. for school, let's have it to where they're getting up at 7 a.m. They're still having that breakfast. They're still being able to do something that is very, very active. One of my clients is so adorable. She still has her kids they still have PE Monday through Friday.
Oh, that's the best.
She goes, "Is it PE time?" And they go, "No, Mommy." And I say, "You know what? That is so genius." And the PE is just them doing yoga in their living room.
Sure, just
it's a
keep
bonding
it normal.
experience for them. Yeah, keep it normal. And again, keep them abreast on, it's a crisis, what we're going through, but keep it optimistic, because although we understand that this is not something to take lightly. Kids still deserve the right to not have to be weighed down by all of the outside world disparities that are going on. I know that in Black and brown homes, it's very important, speaking of culture competent, for us to be able to practice social distancing outside our home, but still be very loving and very nurturing inside our home. Make sure that we are cooking as a family. Make sure that we are sitting down and having those conversations, because culturally, we are a very, very, very family-oriented culture. And so without that, isolation does sit in. And isolation breeds depression. And once you get into that depressive state, or start to exhibit symptoms of depression, then you become into the negative, distorted thinking. That is no longer true. Panic comes in. You're in a state of panic and anxiety. So things just flood the mental space when you're not practicing things every day, whether it's meditation, reading a book, staying connected. If you are in a house by yourself, make sure that you're texting someone. Get on these Zoom calls. I know that some girlfriends and I, we have Zoom happy hours, where we schedule 2 or 3 times out of the week, and we have our glass of wines, and we on Zoom, and we laugh and talk about absolutely nothing. But it's everything we need to recharge.
Maintaining that social connection, I imagine, is imperative, especially in communities that, as you mentioned, are very used to socializing all day, every day.
Yes.
It's just part of who they are.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I was reading some statistics, and all of this will ultimately, vary, but how is Los Angeles doing in managing the information provided to minority communities through this whole thing? It seems from my vantage point, and believe me, that's a very loose term, that it's actually going well.
I have to agree with you. I do believe that our mayor is doing a wonderful job, and our governor, and even our city council, Joe Busciano, which I'm in CD 15,
right.
With making sure that the community is abreast on updates on what needs to be done, what is being done, and what we are trying to do, and the best ways and tips on how to protect yourself, how to protect your family, and those sorts of things. Absolutely. One thing that I do believe that we need to improve on is testing. I believe that testing needs to be definitely provided to the communities, such as Black and Brown, who do not, pre-pandemic and now,
right.
have access to health care. Why? Because African Americans are being attacked 2 times more by this pandemic than any other race. Okay? And we only take up 9% of the Los Angeles County population, and we are 17% of the death rate. Okay? Now, my thing is, if you already know that, and it was me, I'd be sending tests directly to where I know the highly affected communities are. Not only to protect and serve those communities as a human right, but also because I'm thinking, if they are the most affected, and this thing is spreading like wildflowers, we got to get to the most affected. That's the piece where it becomes a disparity. Because why is it that you are not setting up, and I'm not saying that our elected officials are not setting that up. That's not what I'm saying. I'm speaking on what I see can be a resolution or a part of a resolution. And what before this pandemic was not happening in the Black and brown communities. And we're seeing it now in the pandemic, still not happening. When you have a race of people who already are suffering from underlying health issues, and you know that their death rate is high, and you know that their contagiousness or them catching this is high, Why would you not go in there as a human right and do something about that and concentrate testing in that area? One. Two, we at the Dr. Bryant Foundation, we have hooked up with another organization where, because we know that in these communities, the minority communities, these individuals don't have access to masks. So they see it on their television, but they don't have access to masks. And in order for them to go get a mask, if they want to get one, if they don't have transportation, they're getting on a public transportation. That means that they're exposing themselves to other people. Again,
to go get protection.
You get what I'm saying?
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. And so even if they are a carrier of it and they're leaving the house, they're still exposing themselves to other people.
Sure.
And if they're not a carrier, it goes vice versa. They're leaving their house to risk their life, to go do something that is possibly supposed to save their life. Okay? And so we have hooked up with the organization where in the next couple weeks, we are going to be doing a PPE drop-off.
Oh.
In these, yes, in the African American and the brown community, where we have this big rig, we're gonna fill it up with PPE gear, with hand sanitizer, a mask, and gloves, and we're gonna just do a cute drop off on the front porch. And we're gonna make sure that they know that the memo of when you come out your porch, grab your bag, you got your stuff. You don't have to leave the community to go out there and get it. Absolutely. I do believe that our healthcare providers, 100%, we're so grateful for them. They need the mask. But I also believe that the people in the community need those masks as well to be protected. In addition to that,
I was going to say, I know that you're doing more.
We are, yeah, absolutely. In addition to that, the Dr. Bryant Foundation and NAACP, we are providing $100,000 worth of grocery gift cards to the CD15 Harbor area community. We also, thanks to our really good friend Mike Lansing for the contribution, we also are providing 100 families with hot plates, not for one person, but for their entire household. And so we have set up things to do all that we can do within our capacity. Obviously, there's more that needs to be done. There's more that we want to do. And as we continue to partner with these different organizations, we're going to continue to go in these communities and do what we can to provide that type of protection for them. Because it is something that obviously at this point, sadly and unfortunately, but we have to take matters into our own hands as a black community, as a brown community, and we have to get together and say, okay, what else needs to be done? Let's hit the floor running, boots to the ground. No more just complaining about it. No more just watching your TV screen and saying this is sad, but contact your local organization. If you want to even partner up with us, we would love to have you a part of our organization. You can go to NAACP1069@gmail.com.
Which you are the president
I'm
of.
the president of the NAACP for San Pedro Wilmington. You can also contact us at drbryantfoundation.org. We have a whole volunteer page where you just put your name in there and we will contact you. We do advise all seniors to make sure that they are not going to grocery stores, they are not going to pick up their medication. They are having someone else do that for them. They're contacting if they got to contact their local officials, go online, contact a neighbor, and see if someone can go out and get that done for them so that we can protect our seniors as well that are in our community.
How are you protecting yourself? Well, because you're carrying a burden here of people's psyche and of people's health and of people's need, and it doesn't sound like you're sleeping. So how are you?
I see you understand.
How are you caring for you? Because you can't help others if you are not strong and healthy yourself.
100%. You sound like you've been to a Dr. Bryant workshop, because I always say we produce who we are. We only can give what we have, and it starts with self-love. A few things that are therapeutic for me. I have an evening run I do Monday through Friday, sometimes Monday through Sunday. I read audiobooks. I watch positive YouTube videos. I stay connected. I have my Zoom meetings. I'm involved with that. I keep my schedule going. I have a very supportive family that I stay connected with via text message, via phone calls. In addition to that, to further your question, no, I don't get much sleep, but it's not a burden on me to do this because true leadership is putting yourself on the front line, and putting yourself on the front line to, oftentimes risking your well-being, because that's what leadership does. Because leadership is getting out there and saying, listen, this is what I've signed up to do. This is in my DNA, and I'm going to do it regardless. Because that's my legacy, is to be able to come in and have an impact on community, to be able to give back to communities that I've came from. I'm a product of the inner city. I'm a product of the people that I'm helping right now. And so for me to go back and do that and be a leader of this community, it makes my heart smile, and it is my purpose, And it really is something that I believe all leaders have to understand when they take that oath, because there's not just an oath of medical doctors or an oath of being an attorney. Leadership is taking an oath, an unspoken oath that says that I am willing to give my all within my capacity that I can to change lives, even if it's one life in my lifetime. And when you sign up to do that, you put your head down and you just go. You take calculated risk, but you do make sure that you're showing up for yourself and for your people every day, whatever that means.
And you are a great example.
Thank
so that's
you.
a very important component of all of this
Thank
too,
you.
because of, what you do will be seen, and what is being seen will be reflected. And so congratulations.
And that's the hope.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
Well, congratulations, Dr. Bryant. I mean, it's been really wonderful to talk with you, and I'm sure you'll get lots and lots and lots of support for all these great things that you're doing. So
I hope so.
congratulations.
Maybe we can get you out there with us.
Why not? Let's do
That'd be
it.
amazing.
All right.
Thank you so much for having
Be
me.
safe.
Great job.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
And that's a wrap on LA Currents.